Cashiers, what products do you silently judge people for buying? Years ago, I worked at a drugstore that had a liquor department. One customer has forever stayed with me because she just broke my heart. She was older, maybe in her late 60s or early 70s, always clean and neat, but clearly living on a very restricted income. Very polite as well. She came in every day to buy the same exact thing with no variation, a pint of the cheapest vodka we had, a can of cat food, and a lottery ticket. After about 6 months of this, I asked her about her cat, and she told me she didn't have one, that this was cheap and good enough for her to live on. I was just floored. To think of this sweet lady eating cat food so she could afford her lottery ticket and vodka, it still messes me up. I had a very wealthy older gentleman and his wife as close friends before their death. They could literally afford anything they'd care to buy. Nonetheless, they were very frugal in some things. His favorite lunch was tuna salad sandwiches. She found this great deal on tuna once and bought her new cheap brand for the longest. He said he loved it. Not sure how long they'd been eating it before they figured out that it was cat food. It was sad to watch people pick up their medicine for their liver disease and then buy the nastiest, cheapest vodka, Pop-Off, Stalingrad, for example. I felt so bad selling that crap. I felt bad for them because they were all my regulars and were always nice, probably always wasted too. Another sad thing is knowing that the homeless, junkies, and drunk people used to be pretty successful before messing it up. There was one lady who was crazy, smeared red lips, no teeth, always kept her money in her bra, wearing the craziest outfits, always saying she's pregnant, just tapped. Her name was Wendy, and everyone in the neighborhood knew her, and she also had family around. She would come in, a family member walks in, says hi and bye, and Wendy walks out. Her family members would tell me back then that she used to be the most beautiful girl around and used to be a famous dancer with a killer body until the addiction came along. I couldn't imagine that lady looking normal once in her life, and I have seen some crazy people in my lifetime. It's mean to say, but it was true. She really let herself go. It makes me sad to see a gorgeous woman go to waste. Aw, that cat food story was so sad, and it reminds me of a series I watched recently called Kotaro Lives Alone. You guys should watch it. I'd share some details, but I wouldn't want to spoil it for you. Story 2. I worked for a liquor store chain for 11 years. I really didn't pay too much attention to the actual item they bought, but the cost and the quantity. I remember one lady buying 3 1.75 bottles of $9.99 vodka every morning. Her skin was yellow. Working in a liquor store has its sad moments, but you also start to really care for some of your regulars, even though they're alcoholics. Alcohol is a depressant, so it follows naturally that you're going to run into some sad stories. I once had a very nice, well-dressed, mid-50s woman come into my store, and although she wasn't out of place physically, we're a nicer, higher-end liquor store, she was there at like 1 a.m. and didn't seem to know her way around the beer cooler. I asked if I could help her find something, and she pretty silently says, Blue Moon. I do my thing and show her where it is, suggest some similar beers, ask her if there's anything else I can help her find, and she says no. While I'm ringing her up, she's very focused on getting a receipt. We don't automatically print them, so I usually just chat with customers to fill the 5 seconds it takes to pull up the menu and find her receipt and print it. She asks me to make a few copies just in case, and I'm like, of course, sure, not a problem. And then she asks if I have an envelope or something to keep them safe. I try my best to find something for her and end up folding some cardboard and rubber banding it for her, and I ask her why she's going through all the trouble to keep her receipts safe. She breaks down and tells me that she's on her way to the hospital where her daughter is dying, and all she wanted before she went was to share a blue moon with her mother. She was bawling and could barely hold herself upright by this time, so I went around the counter and gave her a big hug until she could pull herself together. One of those hugs where the person you're hugging is just shaking from grief and squeezing you as tight as they can for support. I helped her to her car and told her to be safe on her drive, and I could tell that she was a Christian from her Jesus fish and cross hanging from her rearview mirror. And although I don't believe in any of that anymore, I just told her, I'll pray for you and your family, which made her cry a little bit, and she hugged me one more time, then she left. I never saw her again, but if God ends up being real, he got his first prayer from me in like 2 years, and I hope he takes care of her. Story 3. I worked at a pharmacy as a teenager, and I remember the day we started stocking the Magnums. It was also the first day we had an opened package come in as a return because they're still too small. Frickin' perv. Thought he was funny. 16-year-old me didn't even give him an eye roll. I usually wouldn't care what people bought, though, unless it was a large quantity of one thing. Pretty suspicious. But there was this one guy I remember who would come in maybe once or twice a week and buy Magnums. He'd walk up, with that the only thing in hand, put it on the counter with the most smug grin you've ever seen. That guy was annoying. He was hitting on one of the other cashiers for the longest time, too. Also, before the days of TLC coupon clipping reality shows, one woman came through my line and bought 217 bottles of assorted Kraft salad dressing. She ended up paying nothing for them because of some weird coupon loophole. After my manager had cleared her and she left the store, I was initially impressed, but then thought, what the hell are you going to do with 217 bottles of salad dressing? My favorite was a customer who bought 2 cases of tuna, a large pack of disposable razors, and a few cans of ladies' shaving cream. I was wringing the stuff out and started giggling. He was confused, and I asked, "Are you going to shave a cat?" The guy took a look at his purchases and started laughing so hard he couldn't even breathe. Now, both of us were in tears by the time he was out the door. No one else heard us, so we just kind of looked insane. Dude, that coupon thing was nuts. 217 bottles of salad dressing? I'd love to try that out too, but probably not for salad dressing because who the hell needs that much salad dressing? I do hope there are coupons for Cinnamon Toast Crunch though. Story 4. 2 years ago, I had a lady buy 100 Farmville cards. I've never judged a customer more harshly than that. I once had a couple buy a pack of unlubricated Trojans and a container of I can't believe it's not butter, and I could barely keep a straight face bringing them up. When a guy is buying tampons and or pads, I'm silently thinking, you are awesome. And a few weeks ago, I saw a ragged-looking bearded black guy, around 75 years old maybe, around 130 pounds, buy a 36-pack of Magnums and a 2-liter bottle of Pepsi. I judged him to be awesome as well. Story 5. I used to work at Walmart, and I would get really mad at people who try to buy superfluous or otherwise obviously not covered things with EBT. You'd hear the same story about how much BS EBT coverage was and how much you, the cashier, can go because you're not willing to violate company and federal policy. There were also the bribes or offers or threats that came with people trying to purchase these things. Anyway, a lot of this changed for me when I saw one young family come into the store once. There was a man and a woman, probably in their mid to late 20s, with a younger daughter, around 5 or 6. They came in with an impressive selection of items, lots of fresh and raw vegetables, beans, rice, meats, dairy products, etc. Nothing crazy like candy or soda or chips. Anyway, at the end of all these items is a box of rubber. They looked pretty ashamed when I scanned the box across my register, but hey, I've done it before and I know not to react to seeing that kind of stuff. People have fun all the time, and I'm not going to judge them for protecting themselves. All of their items are rung up by now, and I let them know their total, and the EBT card comes out. It passes through for all of the food items, but not the box of rubber. I guess they didn't know it wouldn't be covered for whatever reason. I told them that they had a lingering total because it wasn't all covered by the card. The look of shame and guilt on their face was unbearable, so much so that I felt ready to cry myself. They had no money to spare at this point and knew this wasn't going to happen, and were so embarrassed to be in this position. My manager comes over and asks if everything was okay. The man shakily chimed in and said, it's nothing, we just didn't bring any cash, you can take that last thing off the list. I had some spare cash on me and offered to spot them the money. They initially said that wouldn't be necessary, but my manager insisted that and assured them I would be compensated. After they left, my manager explained to me that she knew the family. They were friends of hers that she'd known since high school. As it turns out, they had their daughter while in their early 20s, and the husband joined the military to support his family. He did a tour somewhere in the Middle East, and while he was over there, his unit got hit pretty hard. IEDs, rockets, the whole works. A bunch of the guys he was deployed with were killed in some fight that lasted for a few days, and he himself was injured pretty heavily. He got hit by a bullet or two, as well as some shrapnel from an explosion. And after being discharged, he'd been dealing with the fact that he's got a pretty messed up leg for the rest of his life, as well as intense PTSD, and was struggling really hard to find a job. His veteran benefits suck, as is expected these days, and the wife is the only one bringing in any kind of real income, but has to work 2 BS underpaid jobs in order to just barely get by. And it really changes your perspective on things to see that the people who complain and moan about not being able to buy some stupid crap with government aid are afforded the same help as people who are kind and have sacrificed so much, yet struggling just to survive. This person was really kind to do that for the couple and the young kid. I love helping out people too, and sometimes with food and sometimes with my videos. So, how about you consider hitting that like button and subscribing to my channel because it really does also help me bring out the best content to make your days way better. Story 6. I worked at a big box electronics store just off a major highway. I had a family come in, mom, dad, and their 3 boys who are all under the age of 6, and all of them are filthy. The parents were the most awful humans I have ever come into contact with. They were buying a portable DVD player because it was the only way they could get their sons to shut up while they were driving, and they still had 2 hours in the car left to go. Apparently, their kids had broken theirs. Again, the mom's tone implied this was my fault. While the mom was trying to find a credit card that worked, the dad gives the oldest son, who seemed to have a form of autism, a bottle of juice from the checkout. The kid screams and throws it on the ground, and the dad had already opened it without paying for it, and it just goes everywhere. My manager said not to worry about paying for it, kids will be kids, and left to get a mop to clean it up. While the manager was gone, the dad yells at the kid for it, like screams at him, then gives him another open bottle. The kid does the same exact thing again, and we now have a lake of juice on the floor. Their other 2 sons were begging their mom to buy them candy while all of this is going on, about to go into full-on meltdown mode, and she's screaming right back at them. And while all of this is going down, the mom's credit card is declined multiple times, so finally she decides to use debit. She then tells me, I guess I'll have to use our rent money for this then, in a tone that implies it's my fault. She has to use their rent money to buy a portable DVD player. She says she's not sure how she'll be able to make rent this month now. They left by dragging their children out of the store screaming. They did not pay for the juice either. They were just passing through to another city, so I didn't feel like I could call child services, but I have never wanted to so badly. Story 7. I have a few. I'll always remember when Bruce Springsteen came to my register to buy $65 worth of laxatives. He tried to pay with a black American Express card. We don't accept American Express, so he held up the line getting his other card to pay for the pile of laxatives. It sucked for both of us. Well, until he got into his Mercedes and I skateboarded home after work. I also once had a kid, 17-ish, who was buying something small, a soda or something. It came out to like $2.13 and the kid only has $2. Feeling generous, I had a quarter in my pocket and I told him I could cover him. So I entered the tender $2.25 and 12 cents change, which I put back into my pocket. Then this mouth breather is standing there with his hand out asking for his change. I had to explain to him that he doesn't get change as he didn't have enough money in the first place. Here comes the judging part. Just had to share the first two, lol. Lottery tickets. I see people dropping $20 a day on them and then using their EBT for food purchases. I just can't understand that mentality. I judge customers by how they treat other patrons of the store and the employees. Mainly Beats by Dr. Dre, expensive tablets, headphones, and phones and such for their bratty 8-year-old kids that they're just gonna break, and then try to return it and complain that they broke it and the company is responsible. Also, video games rated M for their kids still aged in single digits. Oh, it's too violent and bloody? Well, you should have read the label and no, you cannot return it. I once had an overweight customer return a shake weight because she thought the shaking was automatic. I judged pretty harshly right then. And lastly, I pretty openly judged this one guy. He spent like $100 on MTG cards and denied his kid a $1 coloring book. I'm pretty sure it was the kid's gift card that he paid with too. It was shaped like a cupcake and said happy birthday. I felt like crying when they were about to leave and I ended up buying a $10 crayon and coloring book set from the reshop bin. When they left, I heard the skeevy dad saying how the kid didn't deserve anything from the store, so he sure as hell wasn't going to get him anything. That kid's face was such a contrast to the euphoria that the MTG card purchasing dad was experiencing. I've been judging people buying those cards ever since. This dude gives all MTG players a bad name. Ugh. Story 8. Products aren't really the problem, it's the attitude and demeanor that you approach the register or employee with. I will be honest with you, you could walk up to the register with cucumbers and motor oil and I will personally help to insert them into your back door as long as you do not act like any of the people I described below. When people walk through the doors of a retail outlet, it's like they become entitled children. So here's a small list of the people I view as the crappiest human beings in existence. People who use the name on my name tag to talk down to me. People who act like a hard dude and that I should be lucky that they don't beat me up for telling them to have a nice day. People who complain that I am upsetting them and pissing them off due to me IDing them for a product. People who verbally complain to me that I am really bad at my job for not helping them before another customer. People who approach me and tell me that I should be fired or tell me that a coworker should be fired for doing something that is company policy or not knowing something. People who act offended if I do not immediately give them the price they ask for instead of calling a price check on the item and state that it is because I think they are lying and that I do not trust them. People who insult me and complain that I am not behind the register when I am visibly helping another customer at the moment. People who yell at me that they know company policy and I have to give them an item for so much or for the price on the shelf because it's the rule and they know because they once worked in retail some time ago. People who verbally insult my intelligence and make statements like, well, I bet that's why you're a cashier and work at blah, 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 blah. That is all I can remember or what I want to remember at the moment. I don't like other people as a result of that job, and all of the good people in the world cannot weigh out the fact that one of these stupid excuses of a human being exists. The worst part is that I will help you with a smile on my face and I'll keep apologizing because it's just not worth losing my job and my paycheck. I remember every one of those people and have since then confronted them that they are crappy human beings and to stay away from me when they attempt to talk to me. Huh? What's his problem? When you are that much of a human being, even being called out on it will not change or help you see that the world would probably be better off if you could just not talk in public. Well, I guess it helps to believe in karma, especially for those kinds of customers. Story 9. For me, it was the fat people diets of chips, soda, and cigarettes. I know there's a large portion of Redditors that claim diet has nothing to do with their weight problem, but Jesus. In the 2 years I worked as a cashier, I was amazed about what fat people bought for themselves and their fat kids. I have a couple of regulars who come through my register with nothing but ice cream, chocolate, and chips. Like just $100 of nothing but junk. And I swear one of them looks bigger with each visit. It's quite sad, really, but I use it as a motivator to pick up some vegetables on the way out after my shift. I also had a woman and her son come up to my counter. Both were fairly large and dumped 2 bags of chips and a multitude of sweets. And the son puts a bottle of Coke down too. His mom then tells him to swap it for a Coke Zero. She looked like the type of person to go into a fast food establishment and order an extra large meal and rationalize it by buying a diet beverage. What gets me the most, generally I don't care either way, but when I see people with 3 or 4 kids and loading up on fruit punch, chips, cookies, candy, etc., and paying for it with food stamps, it annoys me. Guys, I'm not into fat shaming, and if you're one of the plus size, then so be it. I'm just generally concerned for your health. Story 10. I worked at a prominent lingerie store a few years ago, and this caretaker came in with a veteran who was probably in his late 80s and was decked out in those I'm a veteran hats and jacket. The veteran was also on oxygen and a paraplegic and could not communicate either. The caretaker would then roll him through the store, just piling on top of the man's bra and other intimate apparel, and she shopped fairly quickly with a large amount of stuff she accumulated. Anyway, she finished her shopping spree fairly quickly, and I had to ring her up with the old man, and she was very antsy and nervous through the whole transaction. I ended up ringing her a total well over $800, and she then told the veteran that he had to pay for her stuff now. The man could barely even move his arm, and she just took out his wallet for him and pulled out his debit card. I had this look of disgust on my face, and she paused for a second and then just avoided eye contact altogether for the rest of the transaction. My manager at the time gave the go-ahead to charge the old man, even though she literally just took his wallet out of his pocket and gave me the card without the poor old man even realizing what was happening. So I charged the man for the merchandise and she signed his name, and I just remember seeing the old man's face and his saddened, watery eyes as she rolled him out of the store. That's low, too low. I'm just going to hope for the best possible situation and assume that it was all to put on many long shows for the old man. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed the video and all of the stories so far, and if you made it this far, I'm sure 100% you're also going to enjoy therapists. What was your I know I'm not supposed to judge you, but holy crap story? Now, it would be hard not to judge story 3 in that video. I'll see you there, and thank you for watching this one.